أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي فالحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين اللهم اجعلنا منهم ومن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر آمين يا رب العالمين ثم أما بعد. Once again everybody, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is session 3 altogether in our gatherings of Surah Al Asr. And in this session, I first want to give you guys a disclaimer. I will not be finishing the surah today. We will try to get through, my goal is to try to get through halfway through the third ayah, or the last ayah of the surah, up until الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. I'll try and explain as best I can, and inshallah ta'ala, hopefully I can wrap everything up neatly by tomorrow. So we begin with a discussion on Wal Asr, the first part of the surah, where Allah says He swears by time that won't stop for anybody, that's passing by quickly, that destroys everything in its path, that's dripping away slowly, and people don't realize how quickly it's passing away. All of those things I talked to you about last time that are part of the embedded meanings of the word Asr, the word He chose to describe time that He took an oath by. There's an additional comment that Hamiduddin Farahi made that I think is relevant in better understanding the meaning of Al-Asr. He says, أن الدهر اسمه من حيث مجموعة ولذلك يستعمل العصر كثيرا للأيام الخالية كما قال امرؤ الكيس ودونه وهل ينعمنا من كان في العصر الخالي. Poetry in Old Arabic and other citations indicate that the word Asr is used for time that has already been lost. The good old days, back in the day. Or time that's already gone by and you've got this regret that you didn't take better advantage of it. So he swears by time that's already been wasted away. There are two implications now. They're sort of contradictory. Time that you don't have much of left, that's one thing that gives you a sense of haste. And the other, dual meaning, is time that's already been lost. Now, how do you combine both of those meanings? The little bit of time you have left and time that you've already lost. If you're conscious of time that you've already wasted away, I wasted the entire year, I wasted the entire month, I wasted my entire youth, what have I been doing all this time? If those thoughts are dominating your mind, then you have a sense of regret, and then immediately after you might become hopeless. And you might feel like, well, it is what it is, I wasted away my life. But the added meaning to Al-Asr is the little bit of time you have left. And by saying that, it's a sense of urgency, I can turn things around and I don't have much time to do so. So it creates a sense of despair about what's already gone, but at the same time the word Al-Asr creates a sense of urgency and a sense of immediate action necessary for the little bit of time that I have left. I better do everything that I can. Okay. Now we're going to deal with the concept of the oath. I've spoken about this in many lectures, but I think just quickly overviewing what is the purpose of Allah taking an oath, as in Him saying, I swear by time that's passing away quickly, I swear by time that you've already lost so much of. What is the benefit of taking an oath? The first implication of oath in any language, whether it's English, Persian, Arabic, whatever language, is oaths are used for testimony. So in a court, when somebody's going to testify, then before they give their evidence or their statement, they're supposed to say, I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, mostly the truth, so help me God, etc. Right? So the idea is that you're supposed to, whatever you say, you're going to be held liable for, and your testimony is a validation that what you're going to say is absolutely true. Okay? Related to that is actually when somebody takes an oath or says, I swear by something, and they are trying to remove skepticism from their listener. In other words, you tell somebody, hey, you know what happened at school today? This, and your son comes over and says, my son comes over and says, yeah, I didn't get any homework today. And I make a face at him like, no homework, huh? And he goes, I swear, no homework. The idea of saying I swear is to convince me, because at face value, I didn't find what you're saying believable. So I'm going to go out of my way to convince you by saying I swear. And so when someone feels the need to take an oath, it is as though they're facing an audience that is not ready to believe what they have to say. Skepticism. And this has to be taken into consideration in understanding this ayah. When Allah is swearing by time, it is as though He's acknowledging also that there are lots of people that are going to listen to what He has to say, and they're not really ready to believe it. And He's removing their doubts by taking an oath. That's another function of taking an oath. Oaths are also taken in a state of anger. I swear to God, you better stop. I swear, if you say one more word. People use the oath in virtually any language as an expression of anger. That has to be taken into consideration when we study the surah also. In other words, it is a manifestation of Allah's anger. I swear by time, not much of which is left. And then he's going to say what he's going to say. He's already expressed his anger and his displeasure by use of the oath. These are things, these three items that I've mentioned, to testify or to address skepticism or to express your anger. These are ways of using an oath that are not limited to the Arabic language. Like any culture, any society, when they use oaths, they tend to be one of these three things. So it's not an Arabic thing, it's a language thing altogether. But in the Arabic language in particular, there's an additional use. The ancient Arabs had this weird, kind of unique way of using the oath that other people didn't use. And what they did with it is, you can call it an adatu tanbih. It was a device to capture your attention or capture your imagination. So for instance, in the Arab culture, ancient Arab culture, if somebody had to make an announcement, of course they didn't have a microphone or PA system, so they'd have to go on some hill, so there would be a louder echo, and they'd get up there and then make an announcement. But the problem with making an announcement to a crowd is nobody's paying attention to you. You know, like what we have after Jummah every Friday, like people trying to make like an announcement, and as soon as we see that guy, we run for the hills or run for the door. We don't want to hear what he has to say. The Arabs had a way of, what you say nowadays, hey, listen up, pay attention. Like some way of getting people to silence, which of course for us never works. But the way they did that was to take an oath. And whatever they took an oath by, like for instance, if they said, wa sabaha, this was an oath they used to take. I swear by the morning that's coming. That was their way of saying, oh my God, this guy's got a news alert, something bad is about to happen, and when is it going to happen? Tomorrow morning. It's already almost the evening now, we better listen to what he has to say. So they would take an oath as a way of getting the attention of their audience. Okay, it was a means of garnering attention. Okay, we don't normally do that in other languages, but certainly the Arabs did, and this may be yet another kind of implication of the surah. When Allah begins the surah with the oath, saying He swears by time, it's as though He's saying, you're not paying attention. Listen up. And you don't have much time before this announcement becomes irrelevant for you. The advice that's about to be given to you is only applicable for a limited time. It's a news alert, if you will. Okay. Finally, you've got a Quran usage. This is not found in general language. This is not found in Arabic literature. This is something unique to the Quran itself. How does Allah Himself use oaths? This is the fifth item. And what He does is He actually takes whatever He swears by. In this case, He swore by time. Other places He'll swear by the mountain. Wal fajr, wal layalin ashr. Other times He'll swear by the fig or the olive or the mountain or whatever else, or battle horses. When He swears by something else, whatever He swears by, He uses it as an evidence for what He's going to say. Or you can say He's using it as mental prep for what He's about to say. So, Wal Asr, He's saying, I swear by time that's running away, I swear by time that you've lost most of, I swear by time that very little of which you have left, and now whatever He's going to say has to do with a lack of time, or has to do with a sense of urgency, and will actually be an evidence and a substantiation of what He's actually going to say next. So these are the functions of the oath. And so with that in mind, when you look at the next statement, you have to look at it almost in the shade of Wal Asr. You can't look at Innal insana lafi khusr on its own, which is translated roughly, no doubt every human being is drowning in loss. You can't look at that statement on its own. It's actually in the shade of I swear by time that's running out. Now, let's take the immediate implication, move it out of the way, then we'll deal with the word loss, because that's the interesting word in the next ayah, right? The thing of it is, all human beings, some of us are rich, some of us are poor, some of us are healthy, some of us are sick, some of us are strong and others are weak. Some have better opportunity, some have less opportunity, some are free and some are caged. Human beings find themselves in any variety of circumstances. But the statement that Allah has made is that every one of us is in loss. Doesn't matter what state we're in loss. That's the common denominator between all of us. Whether the one who looks apparently happy or healthy or wealthy or prosperous or the one who looks miserable, it doesn't matter. Allah has made a unanimous declaration. All of you are losing. All of you are actually not just losing, you are in loss already. You're drowning in loss already. And that helps me appreciate what the previous ayah was. The biggest proof that all of us are in a continuous state of loss is time itself. Because that's one thing you and I can never gain more of. That is one thing we're always going to be losing. Today will never come back. Maghrib will never come back. The moments that we've passed away, hayatuka anfas, your life is nothing but inhales and exhales, that's all they are. That inhale that went in and the exhale that went out is not coming back. These are moments of our life that have gone and will never return. It doesn't matter whether you're sick or healthy or poor or wealthy, what part of the world you live in, there's one loss that is unavoidable, and that is of time. And that loss, as days go by, is taking a toll on you. In the sense of physics, which is kind of creepy, I was talking to a friend who's a physics major, through the laws of entropy and all of that, the universe is constantly expanding. And by implication, it's actually constantly breaking apart. Everything is tearing apart. Everything is breaking. And people that have a purely scientific worldview become very, basically they have this annihilist kind of sense of the world. Things are going to end anyway. We're all just going to be, it's all going to be over. The universe is just going to collapse. Everything's falling apart. Everything around us is actually breaking apart. Slowly but surely, the decay and loss is the reality of the entire physical universe around us. As a matter of fact, the human body, we're constantly losing cells. We're constantly, dead skin is falling off, hair is falling off, whether we realize it or not. We're constantly losing physically also. Even Allah mentions not only a reference to what happens in the grave, قَدْ عَلِمْنَا مَا تَنْقُصُ الْأَرْضُ مِنْهُمْ وَعِنْدَنَا كِتَابٌ حَفِيظٌ. We already know what the earth keeps taking away from them. And we have a book that guards everything. Even though you're being decayed away, even as you're alive, there's decay happening. But even after you die, your body is going through decay inside the grave. And Allah says, regardless, what needed to be preserved will always stay preserved. وَعِنْدَنَا كِتَابٌ حَفِيظٌ. But this is the notion of loss that I wanted to start off with, that time is the ultimate loss that cannot be escaped for any of us. Now I want to talk to you about the word choice for loss in this ayah, and that's the word khusr. It's a common word in the Quran. It's used many, many times. It's used to describe, for example, al-khasirun, the losers, ulaika humul khasirun, occurs in the Quran. الَّذِينَ خَسِرُوا, those who lost. خَسِرُوا الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ, Quran says, they lost this life and in the next. They lost both. So the common word actually in the Quran for loss is this word, or the origin of this word, khusr. As for the word loss itself, not as verbs and other forms, the noun itself, khusr, is used in three forms in the Quran. You find khusr and you find khasara. وَلَمْ يَزِدْهُ مَالُهُ وَوَلَدُهُ إِلَّا خَسَارًا. Or you find khusran, خَسِرَ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ ذَلِكَ هُوَ الْخُسْرَانُ الْمُبِينُ. So you find three versions of the word loss, and there's subtle differences between them. Khusran is used for the worst possible loss, that's al-mubalagha, that's not used here. The khasara is used when you're already in a state of loss and it gets worse. That's why typically it comes with ziyada in the Quran. لَمْ يَزِدْهُ مَالُهُ وَوَلَدُهُ إِلَّا khasara. They were already losing, and then more loss on top of the loss they already had. Things got even worse. That's khasar. We don't recite إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرَانٍ, nor do we recite إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خَسَار. We recite إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي khusr. The word khusr is the base notion of loss. And what Allah is saying is, by using that word, that there are degrees of loss. That some people are losing a lot, some people are losing a little, some people are losing insignificant amounts, some people are losing terrible amounts. And by the way, just to put things in relative order, like somebody who loses $1 and is a millionaire may not, oh, was that mine? Oh, I didn't really realize. And it's not a big deal for them. But somebody else who has barely any money loses $1, and that's a huge deal for them. So it could look like the same loss, but it's not felt the same way. It's not felt by people the same way. There are degrees in which we feel or feel the pinch of loss, right? So Allah is making a comment that whoever you are, whether you realize it or not, at some level you are experiencing loss. Of course, the ultimate loss being time itself, but it's not limited to that. How do we know it's not limited to that? Well, we know that because Allah used the word khusrin. The in at the end, the tanween, creates ta'mim, all kinds of loss. It could mean great loss, and it can also mean all kinds of loss. So now I want to dig into this word loss before we go any further. From the Arabic point of view, what's the origin of this word? Al-khasir alladhi yanqusu al-mikyal wal-mizan wal-khasir alladhi dhahaba maluhu wa aqluhu ay khasirahuma. First of all, the khasir in Arabic is not just a loser, he's a cheater. Someone who deceives, like, when people, back in the day, when they sold vegetables or rice or fruit or whatever, they had the scale, the weight on this side and whatever you're buying on the other side, and they'd put false weight or they'd tip the scale a little bit so they give their customer a little less. That person who would give a little less was actually called a khasir, meaning he causes khusran. That's what it's called. So now, first of all, human beings are in loss implies also human beings are being cheated. Human beings are in a scam. They're in a scam. They're being deceived. This is a notion described elsewhere in the Quran, that this is وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. Worldly life is nothing but means by which people get deceived. And part of the meaning of khusr is actually, this idea of ghurur, of deception. So human beings are being cheated out of something. Human beings don't realize. They've got blinders on. They think they're running after something that'll give them success, or think they're running away from some kind of loss, but actually they're running right towards it. They've been cheated all along. They haven't seen the truth for what it is. This is why that dua is so important. Allahumma arina al-haqqa haqqan warzuqna ittiba'ahu. Oh Allah, show us the truth as truth and give us the ability to follow it. Wa arina al-batila batilan warzuqna ijtinabahu. Give us the ability to see false as false and enable us to stay away from it, because sometimes false is so attractive you can't help but be compelled towards it, drawn into it, pulled into its gravitational force, its field, and you and I just go into it blinded. And when someone tries to wake us up, we'd rather not. It's too uncomfortable a reality. In that case, one is deceiving themselves. One chooses to stay happy and deceive themselves. Also, al-khasir is also used for someone who's lost their mind as a result of losing everything. So إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ is actually, in a sense, human beings are indulged in insanity. Human beings are crazy. What are they doing? Like you would think of someone running into a building on fire. What are you doing? You're crazy. That's the comment made by Allah, I swear by time that's running out. If the human being runs, they tend to run towards the wrong thing, towards their own destruction. ذَهَبَ مَالُهُ عَقْلُهُ. They're running towards their own bankruptcy. And this perhaps is also an illusory reference to Judgment Day. When people wake up on Judgment Day, they can't believe what's happening around them. And Allah says, وَتَرَى النَّاسَ سُكَارَى وَمَا هُمْ بِسُكَارَى. You're going to see people, they look like they're drunk. They're not drunk at all. Can't believe what's happening in front of them. And they look just tipsy. That's what they're going to look like. So now moving on, خسرت الميزان وأخسرته نقصته خسر التاجر وضع في تجارته. That's the lazim meaning of it also. For a businessman to experience khusr is actually for the business to collapse. Human beings are drowning in bankruptcy. They've already been duped into bankruptcy. والمعنى المحوري نقص الشيء بذهاب أجزاء منه فقدا. It actually, the overall meaning is when you are losing something continuously, bit by bit, by bit, by bit, by bit. That's actually called khusr. Which reminds me of the essential meaning of asr, when something is squeezed away drip by drip, by drip, by drip, by drip. It's actually similar meaning to that when loss is happening, but it's not all of loss all at once, but you're losing just a little bit at a time. I'm reminded of that experiment, I think it was in psych class, I can't remember what class it was. We saw this experiment of a frog thrown into boiling water. It just jumps out right away, or towards hot water, it jumps out right away. And then you have this frog who's just sitting in water, it's slowly being heated. And it's not jumping. It's just sitting there. And actually it gets to the point where it dies, but it doesn't jump. It didn't realize because the death to it was coming slowly. The slow poison got to it. If he saw the consequences of it all at once, he would have jumped. But no, human beings are just drowning more and more, deeper and deeper and deeper. Allah will give this imagery in Surah An-Nur and describe a person drowning in the middle of an ocean and say, lam yakad yaraha. A person who's drowning in the ocean, it's so dark underneath at the bottom, he almost can't even see his own hand. Like that's the depth to which people can go into khusr. Now, as far as old commentators, classical commentary like Ibn Kathir, rahimahullah, the Sahaba, the Tabi'een, they had lots of things to say about what this loss could mean. And I've kind of compiled all of them in one phrase for you. Fassaru al-khusr bil-halaka, they interpreted that to mean human beings are headed towards destruction, not just loss. Wal-ghaban, which is loss itself. Wal-uquba, they're headed towards retribution from Allah. Wa-bin-nuqs al-maddi, and also towards even material loss. Meaning human beings, whatever they do in this life, they can't gain, they can only lose. Believer, disbeliever, that doesn't matter. It's not even talking about heaven and hell. In this life itself, we can only lose. We can only lose our youth. We can only, like you can have the nicest home, but by the time you're 75, you don't have the back to go up the stairs. You can't use the 6 bedrooms upstairs. What are you going to do with it? You have an amazing swimming pool, you could die if you fall into it. Like it's not anything for you anymore. Young people will come see your mansion and say, wow, I wish I lived here. And the people who actually live there are like, this is a curse, I can't, my children have all gone and left me, my grandkids can never come and visit, all I have is this giant lonely house. That's all I have. That becomes a prison for them, So we can only experience loss because we ourselves are decaying and heading towards an end in this life. That's how Allah made us. كُلُّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا فَانٍ. Allah actually says everyone on this earth was meant to be discontinued. Like, it's not a flaw of God that we get older and our skin gets wrinklier and our eyesight gets weaker and our back gets weak, that's not a flaw in our design. You would think, when a watchmaker makes a really expensive Swiss watch or whatever, it's supposed to last forever. Why couldn't God just make us more durable? We could have just, there's something wrong with this manufacturing. Actually, by design, Quran says, you were designed to deteriorate. وَمَن نُعَمِّرْهُ نُنَكِّسُهُ فِي الْخَلْقِ أَفَلَا يَعْقِلُونَ. Whoever we give age to, we start reversing them in their creation. We start making them weaker and smaller like they were as kids. I'm reminded of Alusi rahimahullah. So many years ago I read this. Said, when a child is small, they're always looking up, climbing up, reaching up. And a man gets old, his back bends, and he's always looking down, like to his future home. SubhanAllah. And children, they keep us up late at night. They don't let us sleep. They cry, they get stomach aches, they want to drink or whatever. Or they cry because that's their power trip. Like fake cry. You ever seen kids fake cry? You're like, that's fake. Yes, it is. I'm still going to do it. But you get older and you can't sleep. And people can't sleep. They have a hard time. And this is perhaps Allah's way of letting them stay up for the night prayer. You're about to meet God. So He facilitates qiyam. You don't have to take pills for that. You can just... And by the way, if you start making qiyam, shaitan's going to come put you to sleep anyway. So, so take advantage. Anyhow, so overall, when you study loss in the Quran, وَسَائِرُ مَا فِي الْقُرْآنِ مِنَ التَّرْكِيبِ هُوَ بِمَعْنَى فَوْتُ مَا كَانَ يُمْكِنَ أَنْ يَفُوزَ بِهِ مِنْ ثَوَابٍ وَنَعِيمٍ لَوْ آمَنْ وَاتَّبَعَ. Quran's commentary on loss is actually to miss out on opportunities that you could have taken advantage of. That's how Allah describes loss. Loss is not about money. Loss is not about, material anything. Loss is not about loss of loved ones. Loss is actually in the Quran about opportunity missed. That's all. That had you truly believed and had you followed the right guidelines, you could have availed from that opportunity. Okay. Imam Habibuddin Farahi, talking about this loss, he says something really beautiful. كان عليهم أن يتنافسوا فيما هو أحق به. It's as if Allah is commenting on the tragedy of human history, saying these people should have been competing with one another in things that are far more worthy of competing in, far more worthy of competition. What were you competing with other people in? Looks, money, showing something off? What was that worth? وَيَنْتَبِهُ عَنْ نَوْمِ اللَّهْوِ وَالْغَفْلَةِ قَبْلَ الْفَوْتِ وَالْحَسْرَةِ. And it was incumbent on people to wake up from their sleep of being distracted all the time and their sleep of being entertained all the time and remaining heedless and asleep to reality before all is lost and the only thing left alive is regret. كما بين لنا في قوله حتى إذا جاء أحدهم الموت قال رب ارجعون. Like Allah Himself says, when the moment comes when death arrives, then he calls out, God, my master, just send me back. I'm going to change. I got it. I know my time's up. Just give me a little bit extra overtime, and I'm gonna be different this time. That's the only thing that's going to be left is regret, because you realize you didn't do anything with the time you did have. May Allah not make us from those people. In his commentary, just a summarization also, he uses time, meaning wal asr innal insana lafi khusr. This statement, he uses it to remind us of perished nations. You know, Asr is the time that passed away on very powerful nations who used to say, Allah even describes them, أَوَلَمْ تَكُونُوا أَقْسَمْتُم مِّن قَبْلُ مَا لَكُم مِّن زَوَالٍ. Aren't you the same people who used to swear back in the day, there shall be no downfall on our civilizations? Have you ever wondered, like people go, you know, ancient Roman ruins or Egyptian ruins, right? Or we go to like these palaces and we take pictures next to them, these monuments around the world. We take pictures next to them, grave sites, etc. But what we're looking at are not just, you know, it's one thing to visit the grave of a dead person. These monuments are actually the graves of dead nations. That's what they are. And we look at them like, that's pretty cool. I took a picture next to this, you know, the pyramid or that. But that's a graveyard of very powerful nations who at one point believed there shall be no downfall for them. We're number one forever, baby. That's what they believed. That's what they held. They prided themselves in it. And Allah says time came and ripped all of that to shreds, and look at where they are now. They're just part of your selfie. That's all they are now. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. And he uses the very same statement to remind us, by looking at that history, you're still around, you better not join them. You better not become like them, meaning learn from history and get your act together. On that note, I want to quickly share with you, inshallah, the three roads. This is a good opportunity to remind you of this. There's some universal principles in Quran study, and this is one of those, like one of the universals, especially when you're studying Quran revealed in Mecca. If you keep this thing in mind, it'll really help your reflections on the Quran. How does Allah seek to wake the reader of the Quran up to reality? How does Allah change our mindset, our worldview? He essentially uses three things. There are fundamentally three things that he uses. Okay, you can say three ways to wake up to reality. The first of them, the one that's being highlighted in this surah, is history or time. So you'll find lots of places in the Quran where Allah is talking about things that happened a long time ago. Prophets that came a long time ago, incidents that occurred a long time ago, nations that came a long time ago, and He'll make reference to them and what they went through. Learn from the past. Learn from the mistakes of others and take role models from those who came much before you, right? Learn from their best practices too. That is lessons from history. That's one way to open your eyes. So when we become oblivious to history, one of those doors by which we can actually, face reality is closed. When we're not interested in that and we reduce that to just old stories, then one opportunity you and I had to actually see life for what it really is gone. And that's actually arguably one of the most recurring themes in the Quran is looking at time that's already passed. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. By the way, I keep calling this surah a summary of the entire Quran. The only other surah that you can definitively call a summary of the entire Quran is Surah Al Fatiha, isn't it? And even in Surah Al Fatiha, when we asked Allah for guidance, the key element of guidance was the straight path, isn't it? Guide us to and through and along the straight path. And then we mentioned صِرَاطَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. And we mentioned that in the past. The path of those you already showered with favor, meaning they're already dead and gone. But we can look back and find those that you showered with favor, not the ones who are recipients of rage, nor the lost. Those are going to, when we find those people in the Quran, those are all people across history. Okay, so that's one major avenue. The other two avenues are also critical. The other two avenues are, Allah wants you to pay attention to what's been created around you and me. He wants us to look at the sky differently. He wants me to look at the earth differently. He wants me to look at the bird differently. أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَى الطَّيْرِ فَوْقَهُمْ صَافَّاتٍ وَيَقْبِضْنَا مَا يُمْسِكُهُنَّ إِلَّا الرَّحْمَنِ. He's changing my view of a single bird just flying across the sky. Haven't they looked at the bird above them that spreads its wings and contracts them? Who do you think is holding them in the air if not the most loving, the most merciful? That bird is reminding me of how much Allah loves me, because it's out of His love and His care that He lets its wings expand and then lets its wings collapse. He's holding it in the air. He's not letting it fall. That's what He's doing every time it takes flight. That's Allah's love. like our emotional bond with Allah. Not just our intellectual. It's not, we've reduced this to a scientific thing. Look at all this amazing creation, there has to be a God. It's not just that. When you observe creation around you, you develop an emotional bond with Allah. You see Allah's mercy, you see Allah's love, you see Allah's planning. When you pay attention to the orange you're about to peel and eat, and you just stop there and you reflect, where did this orange come from? It was a seed not too long ago. And before it was a seed of a tree, and that Allah allowed that tree to grow, and eventually that fruit to come, and that fruit to be picked. I don't know where it was picked from, Brazil, California, halfway around the planet, I don't know where. And it sat on some truck, and then maybe on a plane, and then on a grocery store, and then your mom went and did the groceries and picked it up. It went through so many journeys and made its way all the way to your plate. فَلْيَنْظُرِ الْإِنسَانُ إِلَىٰ طَعَامِهِ. People should take a good look at the food they're eating. How did it get to them? What mechanism of delivery did Allah employ so that you and I can enjoy food? The simple things like food, When He mentions in Surah Al-Rahman, ذَاتُ الْأَكْمَامِ وَالنَّخْلُ ذَاتُ الْأَكْمَامِ. He mentions Allah didn't just make palm trees and fruits, He made palm trees that have bunches, and every fruit is covered, wrapped in what you can call gift wrapping. Like if human beings just need carbohydrates and proteins and certain sugars and whatever else, you can get those in a very nasty tasting mix and you'll be sustained. But Allah didn't just give us that food, He made it look beautiful, He gift wrapped it, and even the wrapping itself, the peel of a banana, the peel of an orange, when you take a Twix or a Kit Kat and you take the wrapper and you throw it away, it poisons the earth. When you take the peel of an orange or a banana or whatever else, it feeds the earth. Even the peel feeds the earth. It smells good. It didn't have to smell good. We could have been fed like horses are fed, off the ground. They're just munching off of whatever's on the ground. Or cows are fed. We are fed with such delicate care. Just if a human being just contemplates on the world Allah has made around him and her, it makes us become grateful creatures. It changes our point of view. That's another eye-opener for us. But when we become oblivious and start thinking we're entitled to everything, when we become the kind of people that open the fridge and say, where's the Pepsi? Oh God, no Pepsi? How am I supposed to eat this burger now? Because with water, it won't even go down my throat. This is like, adabun shadid. I can't do it. That entitlement is our eyes are closed to reality. Our eyes are not open to reality. So the first was history, and the second is the world around us. The third way by which Allah allows us to see is His own words. The third, and perhaps even the most powerful. It's actually only because of His word we are able to take full advantage of the first two. I wouldn't have looked at food the same way if Quran didn't inspire me to. I would never have thought about history the way I would if Allah's words didn't inspire me to. You understand? So it's that third one, which is Allah's own words. Allah has decided to talk to us. And when somebody talks to you, gives you a heart-to-heart, and you're like, wow, my perspective totally changed after you spoke to me. That's what Quran is. قَدْ جَاءَتْكُمْ مَوْعِظَةٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. A counsel, a heartfelt counsel has come to you from your God, from your master. Risalati Rabbi, Quran calls it, letters from my master. Now somebody writes you a loving letter. Now nowadays especially, we are people of email or Instagram or Snap messages or WhatsApp messages or text messages. Somebody takes the time out to write something to you and mail it to you handwritten. It's a sentimental value to somebody went out of their way, sent you a card. That's a big deal. That's not an e-card. It's not some file. It's not an emoji. It actually took an effort. It's an expression of something. What painstaking delivery did Quran come to us from? From the seventh heaven all the way to you and me. From Him. That already changes our point of view, but the more we engage with the Quran, the more eyes open. And the more we get further away from it, the more eyes start becoming closed. And the first two doors that were open, even they start shutting down. Okay? By the way, those first two, a good look at history and a good look at the world around us, we were capable of, Allah made us capable of, even if we hadn't heard a single word of the Quran. We were capable of that. But after the Quran came, we have no excuse but to take advantage of all three. You understand? And so when you study the Quran, especially Meccan Quran, you have to see which one of those three is Allah opening my eyes with. There are things only Allah can tell me I can't know, like the afterlife, Judgment Day. Certain truths that there's no way I would have known. That's only going to come from Allah's word, that third avenue. Anyway, so that was a quick side note, but I think an important one. Ash-Shawkani rahimahullah, talking about this ayah, he says, أَقْسَمَ بِالدَّهْرِ لِاشْتِمَالِهِ عَلَى الْعَجَائِبِ وَالْعِبَرِ. He says, by calling on, I swear by time, humanity is in loss. By swearing by time, what Allah has done is He's made us look at all of history and all the strange events that have occurred and all the lessons that can possibly be drawn, and we will come to this conclusion that Allah has come to. He's made us people that study and look at history. As if to say, the study of human history, not just Islamic history, the study of human history, whether it's European history, African history, whether it's ancient civilizational history, whatever history you study, when you are studying history, you're studying something Islamic. You're studying something that reinforces the truth, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. Historians are very important people. History is critical. We are living in an age now when people have certain majors, we make fun of them. What are you studying? History? Oh, couldn't find a real major? And you could have been an accountant at least. Could have done something else. History? Who needs history? And you'll find some of the most successful CEOs in some of the most successful and large corporations in the world are not business majors. They're not tech majors. They're not programmers. They're people that studied art, history, anthropology, psychology. Those are the people who study the humanities, essentially. The Quran actually calls for an in-depth study of the humanities. It does. And it also calls for a study of the sciences, but it certainly does call for an in-depth study of the humanities. And that's why any young students that ever come to me and say, I want to do Islamic studies, what should I do? And I ask them how old they are, and they're like, I'm in college. I was like, finish college first. What should I study in college? Should I just do Arabic in college? No, don't do Arabic in college. Study psychology, study sociology, study anthropology, study history, study law, study one of the humanities, and then get into Islamic studies. You'll have a different point of view. You'll have a broader perspective, and that's needed. That's very much needed. An entire generation of students of Islam that are Renaissance people that understand one of the human sciences and they go in depth in that, and they also study the Islamic sciences. And I have hopes in this generation. In any case, now inshallah we're going to get to the final bit of Innal Insana Lafi Khusr. I talked about the means of emphasis that have been employed therein. One last comment, and that's the positive comment now. I've given you enough negative. Is Imam Hamiduddin Farahi actually argues, because Asr refers to time that's lost and the little bit time that's left, he says actually this surah at face value looks like it's pretty dull, like it's pretty dark, like human beings are in loss. But he sees in the surah something, فَإِنَّ بِهَذِهِ الْمُدَّةِ الْقَلِيلَةِ الْفَانِيَةِ تَسْتَطِيعَ أَن تَكْسِبَ كَنْزًا بَاقِيًا وَمُلْكًا لَا يَبْلَى. He says, and by saying that there's just such little time left, Allah is telling you that you can earn in that very little time an endless treasure. And you can earn in it a kind of success that will never fail. And if you don't take advantage of it, then certainly you are at a loss. I know it's a silly parallel, but I don't know what else. Some strange things come to mind when I study things like this. I used to watch, in high school, I used to watch late night TV because, I had my own basement and my own TV, and I keep the volume low so I could not let my parents know that I'm watching TV. Dad, I used to do that, yeah. So, and these late night commercials, act now, call now, or you're not going to get the discount or whatever else. You don't even want the thing and you want to call them, you're looking for a phone. But in any case, the idea is, Allah is saying, there's a very limited chance, very limited time for you to get a great deal out of. That same time that is the ultimate loss is actually the ultimate treasure also. It is the ultimate gift Allah has given us. It's the time on this earth. If you look at the timeline of our life, Allah created us before He even created the earth. Before He even created the life on the earth. Allah created all of our souls together. Surah Al Araf, He mentions it. And He asked all of us Alastu bi rabbikum, am I not your master? And we all responded, you are, of course. Then He took from those one Adam alayhi salam soul and He poured it into this body, and Adam alayhi salam was created. But that means I already existed. You and I already existed. And as a matter of fact, the people that are in touch with you right now, your family, friends, people that you meet, sometimes you meet a friend and you think, wow, have we met before? Because you're all too familiar. And the Prophet told us, Al-arwahu junudun mujannada, that souls are actually bunched together. The people that end up meeting here and finding a connection is actually because in the world of souls, they were already in proximity of each other. And there are people that are farther, like there are some people you meet them and you're like, I just don't like being around that person. I mean, I have nothing against them, but I just kind of, and those were people that were actually further away from you in that world. And even when they come close to you, like the two negatives repel, that's what happens. But the point is, our life began then. God knows how many thousands of years later, the angel decided to take our soul and deliver it to the belly of our mothers. And we had this 9-month or a little more or a little less life inside that world. It was pretty comfortable. No rent to pay, no taxes, there was, no problems, cleanup service, everything taken care of. No problems whatsoever. And if you have a problem, you just kick from the inside and the delivery comes. It's just taken care of. Then ثُمَّ السَّبِيلَ يَسَّرَهُ. That was phase 2 of our life. Phase 3 of our life, we came into this world. And now we have these few moments that we have in this life. However, some people live to the age of 10, some to the age of 80, some to the age of 100. If you ever walk around in a graveyard and look at when people were born and when they died, you'd be shocked. I've gone and you see somebody born 2012, died 2015. Somebody born 1937, died 2017. All variations. We don't know how long we have here. But this is the only time that's limited. And what's coming after this is another life. That's phase 4. And that's going to be the life we have in our graves, which is going to feel like the blink of an eye once we wake up. It's not going to feel like it was just a nap. Literally, when people wake up on Judgment Day, they're going to say, "Man ba'athana min marqadina," in Surah Yasin. He says, "Who woke us up from our nap? We're just taking a little rest." And then Judgment Day itself is a life, because, and according to Quran, it's going to feel like 50,000 years by itself. And then there's eternity, heaven and hell. So all these phases. But you know what? This little tiny phase, the one we're in right now, determines everything else. Everything else is based on this. You take good advantage of this, everything else gets sorted out. Our life is not just starting and ending here. We shouldn't be the people of midlife crises. This is not the end of our life. We're not hitting mortality. We're actually getting ready for the next phase of our journey. This is just a stop. This is why the Prophet ﷺ would describe this part of our journey as just a stop, like a traveler just taking a rest. That's all this is. That view needs to be internalized. Time here is running out, and if you don't take advantage of this little time, then in fact you and I are in loss. Now we get to the exception. And in this exception today, my hope is 1, maybe 2 parts of this exception. There are 4 items here. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا 1, وَعَمِلُوا صَالِحَاتٍ 2, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ 3, and وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ 4. I'm hoping that وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ and وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ I do tomorrow. But some comments on الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ we do today. That phrase is very common across the entire Quran, except those who believe and do good deeds. I'm sure you've heard it many, many times, right? That those who believe and did good deeds. We're going to take one thing at a time. First of all, Allah Azza wa Jalla says those who believed in the past tense. This is already, the past tense in Arabic can be used even in the meaning of present, so you can translate this as those who believe. It's fine. But using the past tense also lets us know that if you want role models to figure out what it means to look like, what does true faith look like, go in the past. Which again corresponds to what we learned in the Fatiha, Sirat al-Ladina, not tun'imu alayhim, but an'amta alayhim, al-fi'l al-madi. Right? Who you blessed, who you showered with favor. The same way those who've believed. Across history, they're the ones that have succeeded. I'll repeat one of my comments to you from before about success. People came before us and they were much wealthier than we will ever be. Some were much more powerful than we can even imagine. They're all gone. And then some people came before us who didn't have any material gain to speak of, but they did believe and they did some good things. Those are people that to this day, the good that they did is impacting others and others and others. Imagine somebody who just just out of the sense of doing somebody else goodness, they planted a seed and died. They never even saw that seed turn into a plant. But much after their death, that seed became a tree. And that tree gave fruit. And people enjoyed that fruit and took the seeds of that fruit and planted it again, and then again, and then again. And that one seed turned into gardens and gardens and gardens and fed hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people over the course of 1,000 years. That one person, all they did was what? One seed. But that became their greatest gain. And people around will say, man, this poor guy wanted to grow a tree, couldn't even get to time, he didn't even live long enough to see it grow. As opposed to his neighbor who had massive gardens, but for himself, not for anybody else. Just for himself. People will see that, oh, pretty successful guy, too bad he died. But as far as Allah is concerned, one of these is a winner, the other is a loser. You understand? This is the view of Iman. The view of Iman changes how we think of success and failure throughout history. People that have made timeless investments, that took that little time and put something in this world that left impact and kept going forward and going forward and going forward. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us from them. فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ الْإِيمَانِ Now I'll talk to you about Iman itself, faith itself, from a language point of view. فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ الْإِيمَانِ أَصْلُهُ الْأَمْنِ The origin of the word faith in the Arabic language is actually feeling safe and peaceful and secure. When somebody feels peaceful, safe and secure, that's amn. وَالْإِيمَانُ يُسْتَعْمَلُ لُغَةً عَلَى وُجُوهٍ So linguistically it's used in multiple ways. Like for example, to give peace. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَآمَنَهُمْ مِنْ خَوْفٍ يعني أعطاه الأمن. Allah gave peace to them. To offer peace to somebody else. Actually, by using the word Iman, we're learning not only do we ourselves find peace, feel secure. By the way, what's the context here? Losing time and feeling loss. And when he mentions peace now, he's saying the only people that will be safe from having lost that time, will have availed that time, are people that have the security of faith with them. He's also saying everybody else will feel loss. The only people who won't feel the impact of that loss are people who are safe from it. They have aman from it by being people of Iman. You have aman from it by being people of Iman. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ آمَنَ لَهُ أَيْ صَدَّقَهُ وَاعْتَمَدَ عَلَيْهِ The other meaning of Iman is to actually believe in something, to rely on something, to be convinced of something. So there are two, and by the way, in the Hebrew language, Aman is also to believe and to confirm truth, وَالتَّثَبُّتْ. And from it comes the word Amin, which even in the Jewish and Christian tradition they say Amen. It's from Amin, it's from Aman also. It's actually an acknowledgement that I believe in what was just said. I have full conviction in it and I find peace and safety in it. And it's a prayer for making all of whatever I've prayed for a means of my security. That's actually kind of the implication of saying the words Amin at the end. Now, we've commonly translated Iman as those who believed. But I'm taking it a lot of steps further. I'm saying those who felt secure, those who felt safe, those who were in fact safe, and made others feel safe. Iman is like described in the Quran as a light. In Surah An-Nur, it's described as a light. The thing about light is, it doesn't just illuminate you. What does it do? It illuminates your surroundings, right? And the point of it is, when Allah says, the only people that are not in loss, by using the word Iman, He's saying these aren't just people who benefit themselves, they necessarily benefit others. And it's actually then when you understand, by the time you get to وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ, by the end of this line of statements, when they encourage others to the truth or inspire others to be patient, they become a source of light for others, but that was already all there in what word? Iman. Iman already had that in there. Allah is just opening it up, but it's actually all what I was describing before. Iman is the seed, and everything else that's going to come after it is just sprouting from that seed. It's a natural consequence of that seed. So this is about ourselves and feeling safe. But it's not just about being convinced. Like, I believe in God, I believe in Allah, I believe He exists, I have Iman. No, that's not enough. Did the devil believe that God exists? more than we do. He actually spoke to him. Like he was in his company. So he's no doubt in his mind that Allah exists. No doubt about angels. No doubt about heaven or hell. He's seen that stuff. It's not even a belief in the unseen for him, it's a belief in the seen. But Allah describes him, kana min al-kafirin. He was among disbelievers. Is Allah saying that he was among those not convinced? No, he had istiqan. He was convinced. He's describing a different problem. Here's where, if you don't understand this part, you miss the whole surah. You miss the whole surah. There are 4 conditions to save ourselves, right? Every one of those 4 conditions you have to look at 2 ways. By way of the mind and by way of the heart. I'll repeat myself. 4 conditions. Faith, good deeds, enjoining truth, enjoining perseverance. We'll deal with all of them, but every one of them you have to look at aqlan, and then you have to look at it qalban, by way of the mind and by way of the heart. When Allah describes Iblis, did his mind accept that God exists? Sure. What refused God? The heart did. He's kafir qalban, not aqlan. You understand? Just because somebody believes intellectually doesn't mean they're considered a believer spiritually. Like their heart is satisfied with what God has to say, what Allah has to say. That they're at peace in their heart. They feel secure in their heart with revelation, with what was given to Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But they say to themselves, but I believe he exists though. Yeah, you do. That's here. But you're discontent with what he has to say, and your refusal to believe that whatever he has for you is better for you, that reluctance is here. When he says الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, he means both. He means qalban wa aqlan. He means by way of the heart and by way of the mind. Now some people are, some people are emotional. Some people are not philosophers, scientists. They're normal, average people. When they hear some good advice from Allah, or they hear a good da'wah to Islam, their heart melts, they start crying. تَرَى أَعْيُنَهُمْ تَفِيضُ مِنَ الدَّمْعِ. You're going to see their eyes roll with tears, and they're going to accept Islam. That happens. Did their mind accept or heart accept actually? It was their heart that accepted. Like Umar bin al-Khattab, his heart melted. His heart melted and he accepted Islam. But then there are people who want evidence. They want to be shown the philosophical foundations of this religion. Why should I accept this religion? There's so many other religions. Why should I believe in this one? What's so convincing about this one? What are your adillah? What are your evidences? And they want an intellectual path to faith. That's fair. Some people are more intellectually inclined than others. It's fair. They want a logical proof. They want a rational argument. That's fair. Quran offers rational arguments. But actually, you know which one is always going to be the top between the two? The heart. In other words, even if you came to this religion intellectually, your journey just started. And now you have to earn this faith truly where? In your heart. This is why if you just have intellectually you have accepted that you're Allah's messenger, that there is a God. قَالَتِ الْأَعْرَابُ آمَنَّا. They said we believe. Allah says, قُلْ لَمْ تُؤْمِنُوا وَلَكِنْ قُلُوا أَسْلَمْنَا وَلَمَّا يَدْخُلِ الْإِيمَانُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. Says just say you become Muslim because faith hasn't yet penetrated your hearts. That hasn't happened yet. That's something else. Building our iman intellectually is one journey. Building our iman spiritually is another journey. There are two very different journeys. And somebody becomes Muslim after taking an intellectual journey, and they might think their journey to iman is done. Their intellectual journey may be over. And my intellectual journey, am I convinced that Islam is the truth? Absolutely. I'm convinced. I'm satisfied. I don't revisit that conclusion. Am I convinced that Quran is the word of Allah? Absolutely. I've met with Orientalist professors, non-Muslims, atheists, whoever. You're never going to revisit that conclusion. You're not open-minded to think that maybe it's not. Nope, I'm not open-minded about that. I'm done. I'm intellectually satisfied. This is the word of God. I'm okay. I have nothing left, no curiosity left whether it is or not. None, zero. But does that mean my iman is complete? Nope. That just means my intellectual iman is satisfied. My spiritual iman is actually something that has to be hit hard, and then hit hard again, and hit hard again, and then again, and then again, and then again. That's the only way it can stay alive. Do you now understand when Allah says to believers, those of you who believe, believe. As if you can say, those of you who believe up here, it's time to believe in here. أَلَمْ يَأْنِ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن تَخْشَعَ قُلُوبُهُمْ لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Isn't it time yet for those who've claimed to believe that their hearts should tremble with the remembrance of Allah? Their hearts should be filled with Allah's remembrance. This is part of the implications of إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. I will give you one more example other than the devil. You know, the Pharaoh, one of the greatest disbelievers in history, called himself God. The people around him, his ministers, were aligned with him. But you know what Allah says? فَلَمَّا جَاءَتْهُمْ آيَاتُنَا مُبْصِرَةً قَالُوا هَذَا سِحْرٌ مُبِينٌ. When our most undeniable, you could see with your eyes the incredible miracles of God when they came to them, the 9 signs that were given to Musa alayhi salam, the staff turning into a snake, the hand turning white, the frogs, the locust, those incredible miracles that hit them one after the other, they saw them with their own eyes. They said, this is obviously magic. They denied it. And Allah says, وَجَحَدُوا بِهَا. And they argued against every one of those miracles. وَاسْتَيْقَنَتْهَا أَنفُسُهُمْ ظُلْمًا وَعُلُوًّا. But their inner selves were completely convinced. Allah says they argued against it, while Allah comments, deep down inside, absolutely convinced. Absolutely convinced. And so what's the rationale? Why didn't they? Because they wanted to continue to do wrong and they didn't want to lose their supremacy. ظُلْمًا وَعُلُوًّا. That's it. That's the only reason. I'm reminded of Abu Jahl, Abu Sufyan before Islam. Akhnas ibn Shurayq, who used to come listen to the Prophet ﷺ recite Quran in his house on the outside wall. Like they wouldn't come in, they just stay outside and just sneak over middle of the night and listen to Quran. The Prophet, they're cursing the Prophet during the day, telling their young people of the city to not listen to him. He's insane. And they come addicted to listening to Quran at night. And there are 3 people on 3 different walls, they don't even know each other's there. And they run into each other at night. But what are you doing here? I'm like, what are you doing here? Okay, I know we really wanted to hear Quran, but we're not going to come back, okay? Okay, fine. Next night, they catch each other again. Next night, they catch each other again. And then it's okay, fine, we're done. We're not going to, because if the young people of Makkah find out we're doing this, all this campaign we have against the Quran is going to die. Abu Sufyan tells this after he became Muslim, and he basically asked Abu Jahl one time, so what's wrong? I mean, we're convinced. He goes, yeah, obviously he's a messenger. But if we accept his supremacy, then Banu Hashim is on top forever. We can't have that. We always compete with them. You want to lose to them forever? Intellectually convinced or no? Absolutely. Where's the problem? In the heart. Even for that's for disbelievers, but even for a believer, our problem of Iman, for young people today that are going to college, that are taking a couple of philosophy courses or becoming impressed with scientific atheism and all of this stuff, new atheism, they may need rational or scientific arguments even. That's fine. But oftentimes you can tell through the course of conversation this isn't about rational arguments, nor is it about scientific evidence. This is really about why can't I party like everybody else? It just kind of oozes out. It's not even hidden. Because once you start breaking apart the intellectual disagreements, then the argument comes, but I don't feel like this is something I want to do. When you say feel, want, you're not talking up here. You're talking down here. And this is all that's going to matter on Judgment Day. إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. That's all that's going to matter. فَكَمَا أَنَّ الْإِيمَانِ لِلْعَقْلِ هُدًى وَنُورٍ. It is as if faith, when it comes to our minds, it is guidance and it is light. وَكَذَلِكَ هُوَ لِلْقَلْبِ صَلَاحٌ وَطَهُورٌ. And at the same time, it is reformation for the heart and a purifier for the heart. That's what faith is supposed to be. When Allah in this ayah says, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, it's something that if it's not heartfelt, then we haven't attained, we're still going to stay in loss. Intellectually Muslim, but the heart hasn't come into Islam. The heart hasn't submitted itself to Islam. So now, we've got إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, the 2 sides of it. And by the way, our relationship with the Quran, this is why I'm such an advocate of the Quran. One of my favorite insights into the Quran is when Allah talked about contemplating the book. He talked about it twice, complained twice. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Do they not then contemplate the Quran? Don't they think deeply about the Quran? And when he says that twice, one time he mentions, if you did contemplate it, you would be intellectually convinced. The other time he says, and if you did, your hearts wouldn't be locked anymore. So one time he mentions that contemplation on the Quran opens up the mind. And the other time he mentions contemplation on the Quran opens up the heart. This is something unique to the Quran that does not exist in any other document, any other word in human history. Either a document is intellectually satisfying or it is emotionally appealing. Poetry is, something that moves you to tears, is not necessarily something that's profound in its wisdom or knowledge or information. Those two things don't go hand in hand. The Quran can take a scholar an entire lifetime and they're still not even scratching the surface, aqlan, intellectually. And that same Quran can be recited and the taxi driver and the guy that works at the grocery store and the guy that just barely knows anything about the Quran can stand there and cry to the same Quran. It can get to the heart, it can get to the mind, both at the same time. This is our book. So when he says, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, he gave us now, and by the way, we are in the last stage. The Prophet ﷺ says, أَنَا وَسَّاعَكَ هَاتَيْنِ. Me and the final hour are like these two fingers together. So we are literally in the asr of human civilization. There's the asr of the day, right? The sun is gone down, the light is orange, it's going to turn maghrib any second. That limited time that goes by way too quickly. If you think of all of the saga of human history as one day, we are in the asr of that day. We're in the last phase. And in that asr, Allah Azza wa Jal gave us a means to iman He gave nobody else. And that's the Quran. Which is why so many Sahaba, when the ayah says later on, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ, like Ibn Abbas said, أي تَوَاصَوْا بِالْقُرْآنِ. Actually, he understood haqq, truth, as Quran itself. Ours is not just a religious book like other religious books. It's a way by which we see. That's why Allah calls revelation light. Iman is light. The book itself is also light. And Allah calls Himself Allahu Nuru Samawati wal Ard. And light is a way by which you can see. Allah says, فَآمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَالنُّورِ الَّذِي أَنزَلَ. Understand this beautiful parallel. It changes everything. Allah describes Quran as light. Allah describes Quran as what? Light. Now, can light be seen, or is light the way by which you see? Light is not something you see, light is the way by which you see. You shed light on everything. Light is not shed on, light sheds itself on everything. Quran is light. You don't look at the Quran in light of something else. You look at everything else in light of the Quran. You understand? Today you have people that say we need to look at the Quran in light of modern science. We need to look at the Quran in light of emerging social phenomenon. We need to look at the Quran in light of new isms that come out. Why do we have to take those isms and shed their darkness on the Quran, while the purpose of the Quran is to shed its light on all of them? You understand? And so when you look at conversations about our religion, and you notice people are imposing something onto the Quran, you have to first realize Quran itself, our iman itself, is light. Nothing can be imposed on it. It illuminates all things. Nothing will illuminate Islam. Nothing will illuminate the Quran. The Quran will illuminate. This is, Sirajan Munira is a description of the Prophet ﷺ. فَآمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَالنُّورِ الَّذِي أَنزَلْنَا. The light that we sent down. It changes everything. Even within Islamic studies, it's a different topic, I'll just, 30-second tangent. Even in Islamic studies, sometimes we say, I'm going to look at this ayah in light of that event. Actually, no, I'm going to look at that event in light of this ayah. The event will not shed light on the ayah. The ayah will shed light on the event. That's how the Sahaba saw it. Hudaybiyah happened, everybody was depressed. The Sahaba didn't understand what was going on until Quran shed its light in Surah Al-Fath, and they said, oh, that's what's going on. The Rasul ﷺ lost a child. His uncle was making fun of him. He's traumatized, he's sad, he's upset. Quran reveals Surah Al Kawthar and sheds light on how he should feel. Inna a'tainaka al Kawthar. You should be celebrating, don't be sad. Changes his point of view, sheds light on what happened. We don't take incidents and shed light on the Quran. We take Quran and shed light on all incidents. This is part of implied within illa alladhina amanu. It's not said directly in the text, but I'm saying for us in particular, as opposed to all people before us in human history. By the way, I'm reminded now, that's not even in my notes, you know the Quran itself is called Iman in the Quran. رَبَّنَا إِنَّنَا سَمِعْنَا مُنَادِيًا يُنَادِي لِلْإِيمَانِ. Master, we've heard the call of someone making a call, meaning the Prophet, calling us to faith. What was the Prophet calling them to faith with? What was he reciting to them, day in and day out? What was the Iman that he was calling them to? أَنَا آمِنُوا بِرَبِّكُمْ فَآمَنَّا. It's the revelation itself. Revelation itself is faith. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Now, quickly, and I'll wrap this up, the good deeds thing, we'll start it off, I won't finish it today. I've taken a lot of your time already. وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Let's first talk about amal. The basic translation is they do good deeds. Okay, that's what the basic translation is. But first let's talk about doing. Amal in Arabic is as opposed to fi'l or sunnah. There are multiple words. Sunnah is when you craft something and you require a lot of skill. If Allah said sana'u as-salihat, that would actually necessitate that we have to go out of our way and do some really elaborate good deeds. Meaning we'd have to have mad skills before we did a good deed. Allah made the requirement much less, and He didn't say sana'u. If Allah Azza wa Jalla said fa'alu as-salihat, fi'l. Let me tell you the difference between fi'l, which means to do, and amal, which is used here, which is also to do. If I'm walking, my feet moving is a fi'l. When I'm breathing, inhaling and exhaling is a fi'l. When I blink my eye and look, the ability to see is a fi'l. Any of these acts may not have any intention in them. You don't really necessarily consciously think, hey, left foot, hey, right foot, your turn. You just do it. But I'm walking towards the masjid. Is there intention involved? That's amal. That's not fi'l, that's amal. Seeing is a fi'l, but deliberately looking at somebody, that's not a fi'l, that's a amal. Al-amal bil-ta'ammud. Fihi irada. Amal has intention in it. Conscious act is amal. Allah wants us to be consciously doing good things. He wants us to be aware of the fact that we're doing these deeds. He embedded intention already in it. And by the way, that is a natural consequence of Iman. If you truly have faith, then whatever actions you do are going to be directly inspired by that faith. You're going to do them in light of that faith. And so that's why the use of the word amilu, I thought it was important to highlight the conscious nature of it, the intended nature of it. The other really beautiful thing that I skipped, Allah says, Innal insana lafi khusr, every human being, singular, is in loss. But the sentence did not remain singular. Allah did not say, wal asri, innal insana lafi khusrin, illa alladhi amana wa amila salihan, wa amila salihat, wa tawasa bil haqq, wa tawasa bil sabr. Nope. He didn't use the singular, he used the plural, illa alladhina. But it wasn't, al-insan is just one guy. It's singular. So we were expecting, illa alladhi amana wa amila salihan. Allah is telling us that those who are in loss are going to be alone. Those who are in loss are going to be alone. You know, in Surah An-Nisa, Allah describes the people of heaven, says, Khalidina fiha. They'll all be in it together. By contrast, He describes people of hell and says, Khalidan fiha. He'll be in it alone forever. Solitary confinement. Kulluhum atihi yawm al-qiyamati fardan. Alone. People will be alone. But the people who believe are actually going to be together. Not only in the akhirah. Allah is describing that if you and I want to preserve our faith, if we really want to strengthen our faith, that's not a one-man, one-woman project. We need each other. We need company. We need to be around a certain environment. By the way, I'm still not talking about intellectual faith. What am I talking about? Spiritual faith. Spiritual faith necessitates company. If we're not in a certain environment, if we don't expose ourselves to it little by little, over and over, people that, you're around certain people, you feel closer to Allah. It just happens. You're around certain people, you forget about Allah. It happens. They put you back to sleep. They take you back towards khusr. They don't mean to. They don't know any better themselves. They're sleeping themselves. Like when you're yawning and the person next to you yawns, it's like that. But when you're in an environment, there's an effect. You guys can, sit, on your mobile device and listen to an Islamic thing. You can. And it may be really good. But when you go to a masjid or a convention or an MS somewhere and you're sitting in a gathering and a reminder is being given and you're among other people, there's a different effect. It actually impacts you differently. Even if you don't talk to anybody. Just us being together. Why do you think that prayer and congregation is 27 times better? What's the point of it? It's the fact that Allah inspires believers to come together, to hold on with each other. This actually gives them, it reinforces their faith. It strengthens them. You know, right, that minorities are very tight-knit communities? Right? Minorities? Because if they're not tight-knit, they lose their identity. Right? So you have in a city like New York, all the Chinese move to Flushing now. They move the Desis out. Right? Or the Arab neighborhoods in Steinway, and the Greeks are losing space. Right? So you have neighborhoods where people of a minority want to preserve some language, some culture, some commonality, and they remain very, very tight-knit. Because Allah mentions we are the exception, the believer, the one who wants to preserve their heart. Muslims are a fifth of the world's population. I'm not talking about that. Believers who want to preserve their hearts with Iman are always going to be a minority even within the Muslims. And they're going to have to learn to be a tight-knit community. They're going to have to learn to be around one another. They're going to have to create that kind of an environment. And I would talk more about Amilus Salihat. I am taking too much time. I'll say one more thing about Iman that I think is relevant here and we'll close. And that is, how do you create that environment? The word Allah used for us is alladhina amanu, meaning al-mu'minun, people of faith, but also people who give safety, security, and peace. When you create an environment, a circle, a community where you're trying to preserve faith, everybody who joins that circle or wants to be a part of that circle should feel from you safety, security, peace. Should not feel from you judgment, resentment, a sense of superiority, that you're a newbie, you don't know anything. That's the antithesis of Iman. Iman is supposed to make someone feel aman from you. It's supposed to be no judgment from you. It's supposed to be something that's warm from you. That they feel illuminated in your company, even if you don't open your mouth. That's supposed to be the case. Can you imagine today we have gatherings that are supposed to be about Allah? Masajid, communities, halaqat, study circles, gatherings that are supposed to be about Allah, and we find some of them the most judgmental, the most condescending, the most cultish and the most cliquish. Somebody new comes in and there's, judged by appearance, judged by level of knowledge, judged by previous mistakes, judged by whatever else. Why? That's the antithesis of being alladhina amanu. Those, not just those who believe, those who give off vibes of peace, vibes of security. They give that off. And then amilus salihat. So there's a characteristic of being at peace and offering peace that's already inside alladhina amanu, and above and beyond that Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned the salihat. I'm going to be daring, take 5 minutes and I'm done. Okay, I promise. And that's as-salihat. The word sulh in the Arabic language is translated good deeds. I don't agree with that translation because the word for good in Arabic is khair. Khair actually means good, even means better. But the word sulh actually means reconciliation, fixing something that had gone bad. Okay? Something salim is something that was good already. Something salih is something that wasn't necessarily good, but you fixed it. It got fixed. أصلحت سيارة على سبيل المثال. I fixed the car. To fix something. Salihat are things that are reformed. The word is very carefully chosen to illustrate they do the kinds of things that make them better. Allah is describing that deeds that He's asking us to do are first and foremost there to fix what's broken inside of ourselves. They're actually our own fixes. The ones that we're benefiting by doing a salihat is who? Ourselves. In ahsantum, ahsantum li'anfusikum. If you're going to excel, you're only doing so for your own self. وَمَنْ جَاهَدَ فَإِنَّمَا يُجَاهِدُ لِنَفْسِهِ. The one who struggles only does so for his own benefit. The word of salihat is saying that I'm doing whatever, whether it's prayer, charity, whatever I do. First and foremost, I better recognize that it's doing something for who? Myself. But the word salih is both lazim and muta'addi. Arabic geeks here know it's both transitive and intransitive, which means these deeds don't just fix me. Now that they've fixed me, they help fix things around me. I consciously do things that create good. They're not just good for me and good in and of themselves, but they actually have a replicated effect of good. And so this word, it kind of carries both of those meanings. And by the way, when you have the ability to fix yourself, every time you do something, you're getting better. يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. You're elevating yourself. This is when you understand لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ, that we created the human being in the best of all possible forms. Amilu means they did. As-salihat means the reforming deeds, the ones that reform the self and reform others. As-salihat, the alif and ta, I still have 2 minutes of the 5 I promised I'll end with. The alif and ta at the end, this is an allusion to jam'u qillah. What that means is, Allah is saying there are a handful of good deeds that you're being asked to do, not that many. Allah is not asking you for thousands of things. It's pretty basic, it's pretty simple. It's not an elaborate set of instructions. Our religion is at the heart of it, some things we have to believe from our minds and our hearts. Then there's a circle outside of that, some basic do's and some basic don'ts. Those are as-salihat. Everybody knows those. You don't have to be a mufti or a faqih or a alim to know that. You already know what's halal and what's haram, basically. Basically, nobody is confused about pork or alcohol. You're not confused about that. Nobody's confused about stealing or backbiting or basic things. We know that stuff. What's bad and what's good. We know it. Then outside of that is a circle of things that we do that are extra. Extra fast, extra prayer, extra charity, those extra deeds. But in this as-salihat, Allah is essentially saying even the most basic, fundamental good deeds. Not that many. By the way, if the allusion was to lots and lots of good deeds, then the mufrad would have been used as-saliha, al-a'mala as-salihata. But when you say al-a'mal as-salihat, when you use the alif ta, that becomes jam'u qillah, just a few good deeds. As if Allah is lightening our burden, you don't have much time, and you start thinking to yourself, if Allah already said, I don't have a lot of time, how am I supposed to do all this stuff? He basically said, it's not that much stuff. It's okay. It's not that much is being asked of you. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. I'll begin inshaAllah ta'ala next time with some benefits of the word الَّذِينَ, and we'll go on to finish up وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ and tie it all together. Barakallahu li wa lakum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Thanks for being patient.